You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So, as I have said many times, women really are built for endurance. Women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond are crushing courses around the world. At a time when we have been preconditioned to believe we'll all slow down, many women are holding strong or even improving. This week's guest, British ultra runner Anna Troup, is a perfect example. Anna, who is now 56, took up ultra running in 2013 with the sole aim of completing UTMB, which is the world's most prestigious, challenging 100-mile mountain ultramarathon, which is held in Chamonix, France. And she did that in 2014 and went on to clock many of her greatest ultra running feats since turning 50. Last year, she took first overall, including the men, at the 268-mile, that's 430K, Montane Summer Spine Race, which is Britain's toughest ultramarathon, in 84 hours, 56 minutes, and 37 seconds. And that was after an injury in 2022 that left her doctors questioning if she'd run again. This week, we talk about her most recent feat, completing that same Montane Spine Race, only the winter version, this January, in 106 hours, 19 minutes, and 12 seconds through brutal conditions, including gale-force winds, literally blowing runners off their feet. And wow, she is just something. We dig into her journey into ultras, how she trains, races, and recovers, her menopause experience, and why she really thinks more midlife women should line up and give ultras a go. And I'll tell you, she really has me inspired. I'm guessing she will inspire you too. I will put a couple stories on her in the show notes. I encourage you to check those out. Anna really is something. And just a couple of clarifications so you get even more out of this episode. She talks about a foot condition which is related to the 2022 injury, and it's called tarsal coalition. And this is a congenital condition where two or more bones in your midfoot or hindfoot are abnormally connected by bone or cartilage or tissue, resulting in like a rigid flat foot. And it sounds kind of gnarly, as you'll hear. She also talks about running fells or fell running, which for the non-British members of the audience, a fell is a high altitude barren mountain or upland moor commonly found in northern England or Scotland or Scandinavia. It's derived from Old Norse for mountain or hill, and these are often rocky, steep, treeless landscapes. So you'll appreciate knowing that as she talks about running on them, especially, say, in the dark and in the winter. So I hope you enjoy this one really as much as I did, because I did very much enjoy it. All right, with that, before we get to it, give us a follow at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. Come in and join our private Hit Play Not Pause Facebook group with now well over 36,000 women in it. Head to the show notes and sign up for my free weekly Feisty 40 Plus newsletter with all the training and nutrition news you can use. Thank you, as always, for the continued 5-star ratings and nice reviews. It really does help the show continue to grow. And if you like the show, please do follow it on your podcast app and share it with a friend. That really helps too. So thank you so much. Finally, thank you to our new sponsor, Eternal Health. They are healthcare for active folks just like us. I love Eternal. I know you will too. Listeners of the show can get 15% off their services with the code FEISTY15. That's all caps, FEISTY 15 at eternal.co. And with that, enough of me. Let's have a few words about our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. All right. Anna, welcome to Hit Play Not Pause. And for the audience, we had some technical difficulties, but we're running smoothly now and all warmed up. So thanks for being here, Anna.
No, it's great to be here.
So as I told you before I hit record, I have so many questions about all of your feats and what you've done. And when it was interesting because when I did some research on you, I was trying to find like your history in ultra running because you have all these fastest known times and all this stuff, and I'm like, did she start ultra running when she was 50? So tell us a little bit about how you got into the ultra running space.
So I got into it because we'd been rowers at university, so we were used to doing a lot of training.
Who was we?
Me and my partner, both of us.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So he was a rower, I was a rower. But I had then been a lightweight rower, so I'd always done a lot of running because that was one of the ways we always managed weight. So we'd go running. And then after rowing, when I had a bit more time, I was doing running because that was quite an easy way of keeping fit around work. So that was the marathons, and that was just, half marathons, just the standard road running stuff. From road running, I sort of took I suppose, a sort of sideline into doing Ironman because the long distance stuff suits me. So I did a few Ironman races, and then we were looking for something that me and my partner could do together. And actually, that was ultra because ultra meant that we could go off and do some interesting adventures, and it gave us a new sport. And so we started back in sort of 2012, 2013, looking at ultras, and we found UTMB. So we decided, right, that's the thing
Oh,
we'll qualify for. Did UTMB in 2014, and then the rest is history. We just continued doing these adventures together. And yeah, that's how we got into ultra. It was just about doing adventures.
you're clearly quite good at it. Did you realize when you got into it that you had that acumen for it? I mean, you come from an elite competitive background, so I imagine that all translated into it, but you have like fastest known times and fastest female record holder for some of these long events. Did that come
Uh,
naturally?
I don't think I knew I was good at it when we first started. I knew I was a good endurance athlete, and I knew that I had a bit of a diesel engine, and the longer it was, the better I got. But I don't think it was until I stopped work in sort of 2018 and I went
Mhm.
non-exec and I had a bit more time and we were doing some of the longer stuff and big days on our feet that I realized that I really was able to do this. I think actually, even every time I stand on the start line, you're never quite sure, are you really able to do this? It's still, but yeah, so I think it was more of a happy accident than a right. It wasn't like I'm an elite marathon runner and I'm going to go for that 50K and then I'm going to go for the 100K and I'm just going to get me. That wasn't the path. It was more a case of I just seem to be able to do this long stuff, and then I am actually able to do this long stuff, and I just got better and better at it. I think it's also a skill you learn. It's like any new sport, and you get better at doing those races. You learn as you go along.
Yeah, for sure. So you were probably in your 40s then, correct? When you got into that?
Oh yeah, we didn't even start till I must have been 43, 40. Yes.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
first UTB was heading for 44. Yeah, 44.
And how many hours a week do you train for something like that?
I mean, it depends. If I'm injured, I'm on a bike 6 times a week for 2 hours a day, and then I do my weights, and then we try and hike if I'm allowed to hike. And if I'm able to run, I suppose running wise, we'll do something similar, maybe not 2 hours, more like an hour and a half. But then we will do really big days whenever we can, sort of that 4 to 6 to 10 hours on our feet, just hiking, just being up in the hills, bits of running. So it's just really fill the time with what time you've got. I think those big back to back days as you're running in towards big races make a really big difference.
So speaking of injury, I read that you suffered an injury in 2022 and being told she may never run again. So what happened then?
So I have coalitions in my feet where the bones are joined, slightly joined, which means that when I land, when I'm running, instead of my foot slightly flattening out and taking the sort of pressures away, it just bangs straight down on the front of my heel bone. Now,
Oh,
none of us knew this, and then one day we did know this. And what it does is it causes stress fractures in the front of my heel bone.
ooh.
I'd had one earlier, and then I got one in sort of 20. I felt the other one going, and it really properly went in 2022. And like any stress fracture, you never really know when they're mended. You never really know, can you come back? They're real beasts. And I think I just really struggled to mend that one. And in fact, it hasn't mended. It's non-union, and it just sits there within the bone. So it's not perfect, but actually it doesn't hurt at all. And I just have to manage those. And again, just make sure I'm not overloading. So yeah.
Is it a congenital thing?
Yeah, it turns out it is. It's my father's fault. We blame him regularly. Yeah, and my daughter actually has them too. So yes, it is. Yes.
And it's not a, I assume that you've had your bone density checked. Please say yes.
I definitely have,
Okay.
but so those are nothing to do with bone density, but I am definitely, because of the genetics again, the osteoporosis. My mother has very bad osteoporosis. I am definitely on the osteopenia sort of
Mm.
scale, definitely. So I do everything I can to keep my bones strong, but ultimately they are not the perfect bones.
Well, you're I just want to make sure like that I bang that drum all the time that women should know their bone density and should take care of it. So I'm glad to hear that you are on that. I kind of figured you probably were. So
Yeah.
all of that said, I mean, you clearly are you clearly are running again, like or have because your latest feat was a 268 mile, that's 430K, nonstop. Is it Montane? Is that how you
Yeah.
pronounce the winter spin? You did
Yeah.
in 106 hours and like 19 minutes and 12 seconds. So I don't even know how I think I do long, dumb stuff. I can't even wrap my head around this. So tell me about this race that you just did because you even described it yourself as scary. And I'm like, what does that mean?
So this race is what is called the Pennine Way in the UK.
Okay.
And the Pennine Way is a big national trail that goes from a place called Edale all the way up to a place in Scotland called Kirkyetome. So it's the Peak District all the way up, and it's the spine because it's the spine of Britain.
Gotcha.
It's kind of a whole sort of, I wouldn't say mountain range, not like you guys would think of a mountain range, but it's a lot of, for us, it's little mountains all the way up, going all the way up. So this race is that course. So it is the whole of this national trail. There are also smaller races within it, but the big race, the spine, is sort of one end to the other end. They run it in the summer and they run it in the winter. So I've done it 3 times in the summer, and this was the winter. So
First time.
I tried in 2023, lasted 4 hours, fallen with ice, snow, etc., and ended up with my knee blowing up and being that was it. There was no race. so and then since then I've always thought, oh, it's a 50-50 injury race because the conditions are always terrible. It's always ice, snow, rain, whatever. And it's like, do I really want to risk that? But I've always felt I wanted to have a go. So I had a go, and that was this year. But it's the same as the summer. It's just the conditions are worse. The kit you carry is pretty similar. There's maybe one extra thing, but it's just you are dealing with winter conditions in the UK. And I think winter conditions in the UK are often underestimated because they're not snowy. They tend to be very wet and they tend to be windy. So it's that combination.
That's the worst.
It's the worst. And they catch people out all the time. So it's that combination of wet and cold and snow and I think that was always my fear that I would get the worst of the combinations, and indeed we did. and major gale force winds. I mean, we were getting these gusts that were in the first sort of 4 or 5 hours, people were being literally blown off their feet. It was unbelievable. It was extraordinary. Just picking people up with their whole rucksacks. It was almost impossible to stay upright. It was just one of those storms, those named storms that come through, and it just hit us as we went along a sort of edge. And that was that. Everyone was blown over.
So is that the part that I read some pieces where you were like, this was actually pretty scary. Was what made it scary? Was the just those conditions of being cold and wet and wind that might blow you off the side of the mountain?
Yeah, the really scary bit for me, that's all fine, and that was in the light, and there's people around. The bit that I found really scary is there's one big fell on this race called Crossfell. It's known as having its own extreme weather conditions. It's even got a wind, the Helm wind, that's named. It is only on that particular fell. It just attracts this massive wind. And I was going up there, and it was dark, really dark. It's very dark anyway, this race, because there's not much light at this time in the UK. So it's mostly head torches. But it was very dark. There was no visibility, snow, ice, the ravines in full spate. And I'm completely on my own. I mean, there's just nobody. And it's I was literally eyelashes, everything is covered in those tiny little icicles because it's that cold up there. And it was just one of those moments where I thought, I'm really on my own here. This is probably solo. And there's a safety team, but you also know it's going to take them a while to get to you. And you don't want to fall over. And you don't want to fall in a frozen bog because if you fall in and it's not really frozen, it's going to be really cold and wet. So I think it was more that sense of I've got all the kit. I know what I'm doing, but this could be miserable if it all goes horribly wrong, and I'd really rather not be here. It was just one of those.
So what, I guess the question is, did you ever feel in true peril, or was it just the realization that peril could be around the corner?
I think it's more the realization that peril can be around the corner. I have to admit, I mean, I move. I actually naturally don't look for scary stuff. That's not who I am. But the
Yeah.
minute you put a tracker on, you're in a race, you do this
Yep.
stuff. That, yep, that obviously resonates.
Yep.
I wouldn't naturally choose to do this in my normal life, but it's what a race throws at you, so you get on with it. The spine has great safety teams, and they also have us carry everything we would need if we had an issue. So if I had a real issue, I've got my sleeping bag, I've got my bivy bag, I just need to get into them. I don't really want to unpack my rucksack. That's a pain. I don't really want to get all this kit out. But if it was life or death, it would be out. So that I think is the difference for me. I'm not really in peril. It's just this feels uncomfortably near the edge of what I like.
How long, when you stood on the line, did you think it would take you to finish?
I honestly didn't know because I mean I knew what my summer times were. I didn't know how much slower or how much faster it would be. I think the big difference for me between the winter and the summer actually is in the conditions because the summer can be hugely variable. It's the number of opportunities that you get to stop in the winter. There's a lot more support out on the course.
Hmm.
And the minute you're doing these races and you have an opportunity to chill out and stop and chat to people or, have a hot drink or what, you take them. And those small stopping times start to really add up.
They really add up. Yeah.
It really add up. So it was that really, I think that is the main difference in times rather than, yeah, the conditions were pretty bad and it would have been slower, but I had no clue how that would impact. And I definitely wouldn't have taken into account the amount of stopping time.
Is it true that you slept just about 30 minutes in that 106 hours?
Yeah.
Are you good at that?
In
Naturally?
my in my real life, definitely not. I love sleeping. I think sleep's really important. I really focus on making sure I get enough sleep. I mean, we all know post a certain age, your sleep is never once how it once was, but you do make the most of what you can get. And the first time I did it, I obviously had no clue how I would react to no sleep, and I didn't really have a sleeping plan. It just sort of happened, and then I found out that I can do this stuff without much sleep. And so in my own mind, I think 80 hours I can sort of pretty much get through without much at all. This took you into a new level, 106 hours, and the summer spine I'd done in 25 in June last year. Again, because I was so nervous about it coming back from injury, I'd had no sleep the night before, so that effectively took me into that extra night, and I had
Right.
that tough. So this is why I definitely went for that really good half an hour sleep. In fact, it was in front of somebody's fire. This lovely lady opens up her house to spiners. You walk in and she just said, "Would you like a sleep in front of my open fire?" It's like, yes. So it is the extraordinary part of this race. The support from people who just live in and around the course is phenomenal. And there's certain places they allow you to go in. The spine actually say, yes, that's fine. Unofficial checkpoint, you can use it.
Oh, that's nice. Because I
Yeah.
was going to ask how you did that. Like if you bundled up and had micro sleeps, or you actually had a nice little warm situation to take a
I
nap.
did. Lots of people get their bivvies out. Lots of people do micro sleeps, but no way, that's not me. No, it's like if otherwise it's get to an aid station and sleep. But this was an amazing sleep. I tried to sleep there's another checkpoint further on, but it was cold and it was like no, not sleeping there. So, but this was an amazing sleep.
Do you hallucinate, or do you have any of the things that people talk about where they're seeing
Oh yeah,
things?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Always. Yeah, definitely. That at the first time that was kind of weird. Now that's just part of the course. You just know, and once it starts to happen, and it happens quite early on, 24, 36 hours in, you're already, and then you just sort of see things, and there's, everything becomes an animal, and every tree becomes something different, and but you just sort of embrace it, and you don't worry about it. I don't find them frightening at all. So it's just it's always quite interesting. Oh, what are you? Oh, as you get closer to them and they become, oh, you're a gatepost, right? So I think you're looking for things. You're looking for people, and
The
there are.
brain is trying to figure things out and it's a little
Yeah.
tired. So
Oh yeah.
it's making familiar objects. Like,
Yeah.
um, So you're aware of the hallucinations. Are you able to make cogent decisions and like think straight among?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I definitely think you can. I think sometimes you do things more slowly. I think sometimes you have to catch yourself and recheck things. So if I was in a really difficult nav situation, and again, don't forget I've now been up the course full time, so a lot of it's starting to be quite familiar. But initially I did make some pretty chunky nav areas. I'd go round in a circle. You think you've seen something before. Your brain plays those tricks. But generally, no, I feel pretty cogent, pretty, I'm on it. And at the point I'm not, then that's when you have half an hour's sleep.
Because you're navigating too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off a watch, but yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm curious, you're 56 now. Are there things that you feel that you're better at now than when you started in your 40s?
In a race situation or life?
Well, that's a big question. We could talk all day about that. I was talking about generally in these ultra running situations, but I mean, if you have ideas for life, I'm here for that too.
um, I, I- I'm not sure actually. I think what I've got better at is knowing just managing myself is probably what I've got. But the things that might have thrown me into a panic, I've got to change a head torch battery, and that's just a faff, or this isn't going quite as well as I really would have liked it to. Those small things don't now cause an emotional response. It's more a case of, oh well, right, how do we solve this? So I think that's just knowledge. I think I've got much better at knowing when my body is fine and when it's not, and how not to push it. I get really sick. First night, always horrendously sick. And
What do
once,
you mean by that?
oh,
Like
like,
vomiting?
oh, nausea and vomiting. Yeah, yeah, everything up. That's kind of par for the course. And I don't know why. It just is. Who knows? And then, by the way, the second, once you're into the second day, I can eat for Britain again. It's all good. It's just I almost need to go through this cycle of,
Really?
yeah, it's really
Well,
strange.
I say that because I have the same issue, but I have never gone continuous multi days like that. I've stage raced, and that's fine. But there's a point at which, endurance wise, let's say, especially over 8 hours, where I am in the same boat. Like nothing will stay down. It's a terrible situation. I've tried everything under the sun. But what I'm hearing you say is that if I were only to keep going, like maybe I would find another side where I could eat.
That is what I found. So at the spine, it's about 11 hours in is the first checkpoint, and I can get through there and I can do another couple of hours. So we're talking 12, 13, 14 hours. You're into the night. And then suddenly it's like, whoa, I can't, and it's no rhyme or reason. There's just
Yep.
suddenly, yep, this. So back in the day, what I'd have tried to do is I must eat, I must drink, I must try things, I must. And now that's it. It's okay. No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Don't try and drink. Don't try and eat until my stomach says I'm ready.
Hmm.
And I'm actually, my tummy's rumbling, literally rumbling. But it's like, which is, none of this is perfect, is it? We start to talk about, lack of fuel during training and exercise. Here we are. There's nothing going in for, 10, 12, 14 hours. But actually, it just then resets itself somehow. And then I can have a proper little meal. And then the next time I can have 3 times that amount. And I can just start it's almost like I sort of now treat my stomach as if it's had a really bad flu. And you wouldn't just stuff it full.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's
Comes back. Don't know why. I've also found if I try and suck from those bottles, the flasks that everyone uses, oh, that's a no-no for a while. Drinking from a cup is much, much better if I start to feel sick. Who knows why?
What is your nutrition plan generally? Are you aiming for any sort of, I mean, there's all this grams per hour that people are doing in triathlon and everything. I don't know if ultras are doing it the same way, but what is your nutrition plan generally?
Get anything down while I can get it down. When I can't get it down, don't worry about it. And when I
Yep.
can get it down again, keep going. And
Excellent.
it's always real food. I don't do gels. I don't do any of that stuff. It might be a bit of flapjack. It might, whatever I can get down will go down. It's always savory by the second half generally
Yeah.
because you just go off it. But in the first half, literally what I can get down.
And hydration wise, are you putting anything in your bottles that is just
Squash,
water?
just a bit of squash to start with. And then I can't put squash in. And then
What is
I
squash?
That's like what is it? Juice or cordial? Cordial? What do you call it? When you have sort of sweet stuff in a bit of syrup, a bit syrup to put in drink.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we call it squash.
gotcha.
So it's a bit of kind of, but then I always carry a lemon, a Jif lemon. You know those little lemons, and then
Yeah.
I will put some lemon, just straight lemon juice into water because I don't like the water taste in a flask, always plasticky. So I shove some of that in. But also in those longer races, what I find is a bit of vitamin C, so it stops the mouth ulcers, it stops my mouth getting sore.
Oh,
Oh, I know. It was a real win when I discovered this. It was like, oh.
oh, I'm learning so much. I'm gonna be a fell runner by the end of this thing. Anyway.
And it's what I drink. I drink hot water with lemon. That is just my natural. I love that. That's what I drink anyway. So it's almost like a comforting thing, even if it's cold water. It doesn't really matter. It feels like home.
Excellent. So, where, because of the nature of this podcast, I have to ask, like, when you started, you had to have gone through the menopause transition from the time you started this to where you are now. Do you know when you hit that? How was it for you? Did you have to do anything differently when you did hit it? Hormone therapy, all of the things.
So I think this is really interesting because I'm now, what, 55 going on 56.
Yep.
And I know that I was 51 when I was sort of clinically menopausal, if you like. That was it. That was a year past. So that was 51. I am on that cusp when no one was still really talking about it. It was only starting to be talked about. So when I
Mm-hmm.
look back with the benefit of brilliant hindsight, from probably my early 40s through to then, I was definitely exhibiting perimenopausal symptoms. I mean, I definitely, anxiety's through the roof, your sleep goes off, you just feel a bit anxious all the
Mm.
time and stressed and reactive and occasionally a really mean mum. You know, all of this stuff that now is normalized. And my answer to that was, well, I must be just really stressed at work and there's a lot going on and the children are growing up. I'll just go for a run. So actually, I I dealt with most of that by just continuing to train, not really thinking about did it make a difference to my training. I mean, funny enough, what I've never done, I've been on Training Peaks for the longest time, is ever gone back and looked at did the data change. So that
Mm.
would be quite interesting because I've probably got 10, 15 years of data through the whole period. I mean, my husband put me on inverted commas. He did the research and came up with, well, let's put you on the sort of herbal stuff and let's try some black cahoosh and let's do this and we did magnesium and vitamin D and you name it. We chucked the supplements down and that was, we did that. So maybe it helped, maybe it didn't. But HRT was never really something that was offered. I had the odd, no, I did. I definitely had night sweats, the flushes, the things that wake you up and you're like, oh, I'm all prickly. That's weird. Um, and that happened, but not enough to impact my day job. So we never did anything about it. And I'm not sure at the time there was the knowledge to do anything about it. Plus,
It wasn't in the water the same way. It just wasn't.
it wasn't. It wasn't. And if in fact people were starting to talk and say the word, and it was like, oh, we don't talk about that. That's oh.
Yeah, I started the show in 2020, so it was just about that same time. Like you and I are very close to the same age. I'm a little older. I just turned 57. But it was I relate to so much of what you just said about that anxiety, that always being sort of like on that high stress place and waking up sweated, and it just never even crossed my mind to explore hormone therapy. It never crossed my mind.
And I think I mean, I was someone who found the contraceptive pill really made me very unhappy. And
Mm.
again, maybe that was because back in the day it was really poor and it was new and, who knows? But it was like, oh, I'm not touching that. That just makes me cry. We're not going there. So my sense was if I start messing with this hormone stuff, I could go back there and I don't really want to do that because that was really grim. And at least this is just a little bit grim and I can deal with it. So I think it was, yeah. So did it have an impact? Now with hindsight, yes. Did it have an impact on my running training, being an athlete? I really don't know. I just trained through it with no knowledge. It hit me in COVID. Funny enough, that was probably quite positive. The real sort of the 1 year thing hit me in COVID. And because we were at home, we had a brilliant weights room. We were all really fit and strong in COVID. We were all lifting big weights. Me and the kids, and we were all doing it together. It was really fun. It was a family sort of thing that we did. So I think, yeah, it's had an impact, but has it had an impact on my bones? Possibly, maybe. Would I have tried HRT if I'd known that they were going to turn into sort of little honeycombs? Maybe.
Yeah, that's the only thing like looking like I think that really especially could have I mean aside from the other benefits of it it does because I'm on it now and it really helped with hot flashes and all of that but it is known to help with bones obviously as you know so when I hear that I think had we had that knowledge you know
And I was really lucky because I didn't get the hot flushes to the point that I needed anything. I don't think they'd have given it to me anyway over here because that's what it was known to be really good for back then.
mm-hmm. Boy the
So,
conversation has really changed
oh, in a really positive way.
yeah
But I still feel that it's constantly moving because the research is constantly catching up because the conversation's only really very recently started happening.
yeah so when did you start resistance training then
Well, as a rower, we did masses. And we
oh
lifted
okay
big weights. And so, that was a really big part of rowing training. And so it was always part of my training. And even as a lightweight, we lifted really big weights and then, managed your weight around the fact that you were really, really big. So that was always good. To be honest, I've always had, I go through phases where I'm really, really good and then I'm not so good. But generally, throughout, I've kept it going. So even when I was pregnant with the girls, I used to do body pump classes because you could do those. So actually, that's still resistance training, and I also had a lot more body weight to do at the time. Um, so yeah, I think it's always been part of training. It's just how well and consistently I'm doing it has changed, and it's something now I recognize. I may not love it, but I've got to crack on and get it done.
Yeah, I read, I think it was one of maybe your Instagram posts where you said that strength was like sort of the first things to disappear at this point and being consistent really matters.
Really matters. Yeah.
Do you feel it when you run? Do you feel the difference?
No, I honestly I don't feel the difference. What I notice is if I've been injured for a while, so I've been on the bike and I've been doing my weights really well and consistently, and I come back and maybe we go for a run and maybe it's got some hills and you come back and you upload it into Strava and it's like, wow, that was a really fast segment and I didn't try. That was so it comes through for me in just pace and real strength. But not a physical noticing. Does that make sense? It just happens. It's like, wow, I'm quicker. And I didn't feel quicker.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Because I feel more efficient. You know, and strength training, that's what, especially lifting heavy, is that's what's good for. I definitely feel like my body is working more in sync and better, and I do feel more power when I am running, for sure. I mean, when I'm lifting with my running and my riding.
It's that power. You definitely,
Yeah.
definitely have it. I mean, it's funny because you don't always have it when you're training because the weights kind of sap you. It's like, well, I can feel those are dead legs. but then, but then the minute you just sort of lay off slightly, or you have a down week, or you sort of you start to feel it coming through.
And running on some tired legs is good training for what you do, I imagine.
Oh, it's fabulous training for what I do because you're always running for my legs. Yeah, it is really good.
Everyone always asks in my community, where do you put it in? Where do you put all this stuff in? I run, you know, especially like the ultra people, where do you put it in? Like, how do you fit everything in, quote unquote?
Well, all the training.
hmm Like, how do you fit in your weights with all the running training? Do you do them, do you try to separate them? Do you do them the same day? Like, how does it fit into your schedule?
So, because I'm now on a consistent weight schedule, she says, wearing her halo, I'm actually at a point where I will definitely do them. So, even if I don't do them before my cardio, I will do them. So, we now try and get up properly early and go to bed properly early because we find that makes a really big difference. Even in the UK where it's dark in the morning, it still seems to make a big difference. When I can't run, like at the moment, I will try and get in a proper walk. So a couple of hours of purposeful hiking to keep my legs going. We'll come back, we'll do some eating. We'll have eaten before, but we'll eat again. And then we'll do a couple of hours on our turbos now or watt bikes. And those for us are really about keeping that fitness going. So a lot of it can be quite low intensity. So my husband's built us, this sounds terrible, but he's built us some desks over our turbos so we can actually do other stuff. Because when you're doing load zone 2 or whatever, you can multitask, you can do a ton of stuff. So we just sit there for 2 hours, we're often working, catching up on stuff, we can type, we can do so that makes those 2 hours a really productive 2 hours. The minute you start doing threshold work, you can't do that. But most of the time, we
Yeah.
can do that. And then we'll do the gym in the evening, and every other day will be the heavies, and every other day will be the easy. I call them easy, the band work, which is never easy when you don't do it regularly. The minute you do it regularly, it gets easier. So we'll do
Yeah.
some stretching bands. So that's how we fit it in. Um, Making the watt bike time constructive time. And then when I can run, I wouldn't need to walk and do that. So
Right.
it's much more efficient.
So the band work is a lot of activation and mobility kind of focus, smaller muscles. Yeah.
Yeah, the glute meets, the stuff that you just don't want to do, those dreadful things back and forth and lifting it. Yeah, all that stuff. That's what we end up doing.
Makes a difference.
Sadly it does, and it's so important for the running and for the off-road stuff as well. It's all the stabilization.
Yeah. You mentioned you just sort of slipped in there. I just caught that you are not running right now because you're dealing with something. What's going on right now?
So what we've discovered is that when I do these big long races with quite heavy, because the spine, you've got 7 kilos at least on your back because mandatory kit plus some water, food, etc. Lots of people carry more than that, but the minimum I can get mine to is about 7. Um, I find that one or other knee now gets a fairly chunky bone bruise, and the risk of microfractures and then the risk of those microfractures becoming bigger fractures means that I'm just put on sort of off games, no impact, just let it properly heal. And it does, and it will. And I think I've got orthotics now as a result of my feet. And I'm almost wondering if they now don't break, but it's sending the stresses further up the skeleton, which is
That
not
makes sense,
possible.
actually.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the next thing to explore, because it suddenly dawned on me, hang on, this is the second race in a row. First it was the left knee, now it's the right knee. Both feet are great, and now I've got bone bruises in my knees. So yeah, so we need to look into that and find out what is happening and why that's happening. But either way, I've now done 3 big 200-mile races in 7 months, and therefore I just need to have a little break of, yeah, the impact's really important, but it just needs to be brought in very gently now.
Yeah. Yeah. A proper reset, if you
Yeah.
will. What kind of team support do you have in all of these? I know they're self-supported, but you must have a support crew.
No, we don't have, you're not allowed a support crew.
But
So,
even back at home, I mean, there
oh,
must be something.
I mean, this is that classic sort of race where the kitchen is full of kit and bags and bits and pieces for 2 weeks before you set off. And so, yeah, by definition, home has to live with the whole thing. And I'm lucky because obviously my partner understands all of this and has done it. And he's really good at the admin and the tech and the watches and the GPXs and all that faff, which I'd rather just go and race, but he's good at that. And
Yeah.
it's quite helpful to have someone to bounce around. Do you think this jacket or both jackets? Or so, but the spine are very, very strict that once you start, they only want your family and friends to see you once. Because what they don't want is a gazillion vans on tiny, tiny British country roads. And every year there's some case of someone cheating and getting into a van, and they will disqualify them and they always find them, but they just don't want that. So any sort of pacing, any sort of support is just not allowed apart from random strangers who are out for everybody. That's all
Right.
good. Or, I don't know, these non-official aid stations, that's fine. So, but there's always someone on the end of a phone, which is nice. If I need to call my husband, I can call him and say, I'm lost on Hadrian's Wall. And he'll say, just go east. And I'll be like, I don't even know which way east is. So there's that. So there's definitely home support there. And then the spine has a real community around it. So the aid stations, the volunteers are often runners. It'll be like any of yours in the States as well. It's that sort of community. So you get to know all those individuals, they know you. So you feel as you walk into an aid
Yeah.
station, you're walking into friends, which is nice.
Yeah, that's super nice. And how long, I mean, I know that you're dealing with some residual from a pretty big year, but how long before you feel, I don't know, quote unquote normal again after something like that? And has that recovery process changed? Do you do any special recovery practices?
I'm sure I should do loads, but I I'd say first thing you do, you finish. Someone wants an interview, so you do interviews, and then you just want to eat. You're absolutely just give me all that up, deep fried cheese, cheesy chips. These are the things, the fatty big. So that just goes down, and then suddenly you go, and now I really need to go to bed. So you get, put by generally husbands, everything removed, into a shower, get sorted, and then you have the best sleep that you've had for probably 20 years, where you just lie there and you're out, and it's just amazing. And then you wake up the next day and everything has swollen magically overnight. Your knees, you've no longer got ankles, and definitely don't have feet. You just have these sort of and that sort of swelling probably lasts 3 days. It's definitely 3 to 4 days before I really see any vein in my foot again. It's like, are these mine? It's quite interesting. In terms of the recovery, what I find is I can go for a walk very gently on immediately. The next day, no problem. It might be something like the bottom of my feet might hurt, or you may have toenails that have lifted. It's that might hurt, but actually you're fine. But suddenly you need to sit down. It's like, oh, right, I've got no energy left and I need to sit now. So it's managing their sort of peaks and troughs of energy over the first few days. And by day 4, I can go for a proper hour walk. Won't be fast, but I can happily walk for an hour. By day 7, I'm really purposeful walking. I'm back to totally normal, feeling less ravenous, because until then I'd just eaten anything in sight. 6, 8 times a day, just give it, I just can't get it in fast enough. And this time, by day 14, I just suddenly went, oh, I want to go for a run. And I got on a treadmill. And it was just brilliant. And I really enjoyed it. And that was fine. And in between day 7 and 14, I'd started to gently play around with some weights again. Just what I felt like.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that. But I was walking 10, 12 miles a day. And so I think it's a recovery of 7 to 10 days back to training properly at 2 weeks. And then at 3 weeks, you are back to full training. That's it, done. You're good to go. There is some night sweats in the first week or so. Anyone who's done long will be used to that. That's like PTSD of, am I still racing? Have I finished yet? What's going on? So there's some of that. But generally, I'm back to normal between, 2 weeks and then back to proper training 3 weeks.
Do you feel like your recovery has meaningfully changed over the past decade or so?
The one thing I noticed when I'm training as opposed to racing, because don't forget the racing I do, I don't redline it ever.
Yep.
If I redline it in training, oh my God, do I know about it now? And it will hit me 2, 3, 4 days later, and you suddenly go, oh wow, that really did take it out of me. So I only really do that if I suddenly have, I don't know, you probably know this, you when you have a day and you just go, oh, I feel amazing. I don't follow a training program, I just make it up. So it's just like, oh, I feel amazing, right? Just do it, and you just go for it and you do a really hard session, then I pay. It was worth it, but then I pay. So I think it is the recovery from the really hard stuff that takes its time.
So you don't have a coach?
No.
Okay. That wasn't a judgment question. It's just a curiosity question.
I mean, I would actually really like a coach. I think I would be hard to coach because you get to this point in your life and you've done lots and you do the research on the physiology, and I'd be generally saying, well, why are we doing this? And can you explain that? And, I think I'd be really annoying. But I kind of know what I need to do. I think what I really would want a coach for is to stop me doing as much as I do at times.
I totally understand that. Yep. 100% relate to that. It is that's one of the things I like about having a coach, because they do, I think, dial you back more than dial you up, depending on who you are. Yes.
I think the other thing, and I don't know about over there, but certainly over here, a lot of coaches are just people who are good runners as opposed to coaches. And it's one of my massive bugbears. So I would need to find a coach that I really felt was a coach.
Yeah, you gotta look. You gotta look. They're there. But there's also in cycling too, in my sport too. You have people who were successful in their sport and then they hang up a coaching, practice. And with yeah, I agree with you. Like finding somebody credentialed, qualified, experienced, all the things. And it's like anything else, you have to also, because I've had people who are all those things, but I just don't click. And you also need somebody that you click, because that's the big part of coaching, is somebody who understands you and what motivates you. And I'm not as motivated as like, oh, you got to go out and crush it today, because that's not me, so you need someone who clicks with you.
Yeah. And I think also somebody who is staying at the forefront of being an aging athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the research on that is changing all the time too, and what they're discovering and what we can do and what we should be doing. And so I think someone who finds that interesting, as opposed to someone who goes, well, you're just old and you're still doing it. that's fine, but really you're not really an athlete anymore. And it's like finding the medic that says, no, it's I'm getting you back on your feet and out there as fast as I can, as opposed to the one that goes, really, you're just not lady, go for a walk, you're fine, So
Yeah. And we don't know, and I say this all the time, Anna, and you're kind of like a living proof of it too, is that we don't know, especially as women, what the upper limits are at all because we weren't encouraged to do any of this historically as women, as young girls to play sport first of all, and then to continue that sport into university or just as an adult or recreationally. This is all fairly new ground. So who knows? I mean, I firmly believe women peak later in endurance sports and can sustain quite long.
yeah, and I think the interesting thing for women as we get to this point and even later, a lot of those other stresses, there's so much research
Mm,
out, add up the stresses, and training's just another stress. Well, now hang on, as we get to our late 50s and 60s, quite a lot of those stresses start to decrease. So our performance actually, as we have time to focus on our recovery and do all the things we're meant to do, as opposed to cram it in around the corners, may get better.
yeah.
That's going to be really interesting to see how, as they do more and more work on the nervous system and how the nervous system plays into it, which is all just starting. There's not that much out there that's, really deeply in science. I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Do you look at any of that? Do you track any of your HRV and all those metrics at all? Do you look
I
at your
don't
data?
look at HRV. My eldest daughter, who is a rower at the moment, they all look at HRV. I think the noise in there is quite hard. And I also don't wear my watch in bed, which
Which you would kind of need to.
I kind of need to. And it's a big chunky thing, and I'm just not in that habit. So I don't, but I have, as I've got older, tried to listen a bit harder.
Mm.
I think if you love your training, you kind of get very good at ignoring anything. So I do try and listen. And if my heart rate is low or not really responding, it gets sticky. It doesn't really want to move. And it feels like then I start to think, okay, I just need to back off a little bit.
You don't need to look at HRV if you're doing that.
I'm learning. This
Because
is
that's
not
what your body's actually just telling you, you know.
just back off now before I have to tell you to back off.
Yeah. What do you think endurance sports provide for women in our demographic? Like the things you do.
So that is really interesting, and because and you and I had this quick chat before, but because of this WhatsApp group that I set up for women who wanted to do the spine, were worried about doing the spine, and because of the change in the cutoffs to do the spine, I've suddenly got this demographic of people.
So you set up, so let's tell the audience a bit about that because you sent me that in an email. So tell me, back up and really set the stage. Like, what did you create? Like, who were these women? Were they part of like your community or a running group, or how did you find them? Like, what is this community that you have
So
now?
for every spine race, there is a separate WhatsApp group for each of the races. So there's
Okay.
the race, and then there's one for the smaller races, and there's the summer and the winter. So I was part of this WhatsApp group, which you can take part in or not, but people are talking about kit and all the other things people like to talk about around races. As that race happens and is over, they get rid of that WhatsApp group because it's not
Okay.
anymore.
Right.
As we were getting to that point of it going, suddenly they announced that they were changing the cutoffs for the big race. And this created only by 12 hours, I say only, but for some
Only 12 hours is a long time.
it is, but they did it all the right ways. They put it towards the back end, not the front end. So people still had the time and they took advice, and it was about safety because there's so
Okay.
many people on the course now with all these different races. They physically were starting to struggle with this. So it's 12 hours. And so I looked at this and there was this outpouring of concern, mostly from women. We can't do it anymore. These cutoffs are too hard. This is a disaster. And so I set up off the back of that a women's spine support group where anyone in that current winter group could move over. And then we opened it up. So I did an Instagram, which I don't usually do, and talked about the fact that we'd set this up. And there was an immediate desire for joining this group because what we learned was that the psychology around entering the race and entering any of these ultra races is almost the biggest piece. It's getting brave enough to enter, and once we've got them brave enough to enter, it's then the bravery to start it, because between entering and starting, there's this wobble. Can I really? Oh no, what have I done? And then once they've started, it's about supporting them through that journey. So it's getting them to the start, prepped, ready, confident. That's a long way of saying, as a result of this group, we've started to understand quite a lot of the psychology and the benefits that come to this particular cohort of women, many who are in exactly that demographic, 40 to 50, 40 to 60, and even older, of doing these races. And it's the confidence. It gives them real life confidence. It's the resilience. They take that confidence and resilience into the rest of their lives. And so, if I can do this, I can do that. It's about dealing with the imposter syndrome. I'm not really meant to be here. I shouldn't be here. And they learn that they should be there and they can be there. And then once they've done it there, then it starts to feed across into other areas of their lives. It's about getting over the guilt of doing something for themselves.
Mhm.
They all uniformly feel bad about the time they're taking away from children, family life, whatever it is, parents. It's that time where they feel bad, and yet it's so important they have this time for themselves. And then it takes you into all of that other good stuff that we've just talked about. It solves some of the anxiety that they start to feel around the menopause because they know exercise lifts your mood. It helps with all of those symptoms as well. And so I think what we've learned is that it's possibly the one best thing you can do in this period of life. And we've just seen it firsthand come out in an outpouring from so many different people, how it helps and why it's so important. They're discovering new communities. They might have lost the school gates. Suddenly there's great stories from women who their friends don't understand any of what they do or what they want to do. And suddenly they meet like-minded people. And this has just opened up a new world.
I hear that all the time.
It's amazing. It's all real and happening in front of my eyes. And it's like, wow, there's so much need for proper support for women to actually do these things. Not just the training, it's just the doing. So
Yeah, I, in my experience, I do think that women are, because I came up racing with men, right? Because cycling is a very male dominated sport, especially mountain bike racing and stage racing. And they have just a built-in level of just, of course I can do it. Even if they can't, you can look at them and you're like, I don't think you're gonna make it, my dude. But they're just like, they just have this optimism about their abilities that women don't have in the same way.
no, and I think that's really evident because the Spine's tagline is Britain's most brutal.
Yeah.
That is how it sells itself.
Mm.
Brilliant marketing. It's oversold a gazillion times. Western States Lottery, the Spine is right there. It's and I think that is so intimidating to so many women. I don't belong here. And yet below that tagline is the most supportive community of lovely people desperate for everyone to succeed. So we just
Yeah.
get them over that hump. And we've done a really interesting survey where we got everyone who completed one of those races or DNF'd to write down how much training they'd done and which races and whether they stood on their feet in their jobs or whether they were sedentary. So we've got some really great data from 70 or 80 people. These women are training really, really hard. I'm looking at this going, no wonder there's an 85% finish rate from all of you. I mean, when you take out injuries, these women, when they decide they're going to do it properly. And then you look at the men and they just go, oh, actually, no, I didn't feel like it today. No, and it's like, you've just taken a place. These women would love that place. They're working really hard. And when they commit, they really commit.
Well, I think, and you just nailed on something else that I think is interesting and I think plays into getting women on start lines to begin with is that a 100% thing. It's like, and I am very much this way. I will not sign up for something unless I know I can put in the time to get it done properly. Period. Like I'm not going to sign up and be like, "Oh, I'll figure it out." Like that's not in my DNA. And I think a lot of women are like that. They're like, I got to make sure that I have all this and that, and we always go somewhere in July, and can I get, I mean, there's always these things, and I think that you just do see that more in women than you do in men.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, I happen to love men. I think they're great, but we're
Oh, I'm
different.
not putting down men. I'm just saying there are
Yeah,
psychological differences.
yeah,
Yeah.
there are, and we just got to accept there are, and work with what we've got, and actually work to build that. there is real support in that group, that positive energy, from people who've done it, who can do it, and just the encouragement that's coming out is amazing. So
Totally. And think a little bit like I tell people sometimes like think like take some of that from your the males in your life. Like I will go on rides with my friends, these guys, and it will be 30 miles away. And I've heard them tell their significant others that they're going to be home in like an hour and a half. And I'm like, in what universe? It's
yeah.
like, I call it optimistic dude time. I'm like, you're not going to be back. You're not gonna, like, I know you're not. You're crazy. And there's just like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start. I need some of that optimistic dude time in my life. I'm like, hey, I'll be home by 12. It'll be 3, but it's fine.
It's been really great, but I think the key thing is doing this endurance sport really matters. And so the more it really makes a difference in
Yeah.
so many different ways, the psychological, the physical, the
Yeah.
medical, you name it, it makes a massive difference.
And you were telling me you have women, there's a lady who's 68, did you mention? That is in
Oh
that
no,
group?
she's just done a big chunk of one and she's planning to do the full one at 70. And we've got some really amazing older ladies. We've got you can WhatsApp, you can create into different groups. And in that sort of veteran spine runner group, we've got a lot of older ladies who are absolutely nailing it and just wondering how far they can push it. And we're like, just go for
I
it.
love it. I love everything about it. I think that I see real magic happen when women come together in groups like this and find their people and support each other. It is stunning what they can do. It 100% is. It's life-changing.
It really is. And within that community, by definition, you've got mountain leaders who are qualified, you've got amazing nav people, you've got people who've got all the experience, and all of them are coming together to give that experience for nothing. So training weekends are happening to make sure people are fully prepared. The stuff that is absolute gold dust if you really want to do that race and feel confident hitting the start line. So yeah, it's been quite an amazing journey in only 4 or 5 weeks. And there's so much we could do with that, just more generally around endurance sport. The UK is probably a little bit behind you guys in actually bringing these communities together.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to make sure that our audience heard as we come to the top of our time here?
Not sure we've covered quite a lot, haven't we?
We sure have, but I'm happy to hear any wisdom that you have. Is there something that you're eyeing up right now?
Well, the only thing you asked me a question ahead of time around dot watching.
Oh yeah.
Around where the dot, because I don't know, dot watching, I don't know if it's as big over there, but dot
Oh
watching.
yeah, no, people love
Yeah.
to watch dot watching. And for
Okay.
those who don't know in the audience, not everyone gets the ultra thing, is that if Anna's doing this race, she's got a little tracker on her, and as someone who cares about her or is interested, I can follow her progress online, and she's a little dot on the screen and I can see where she's at. And I think that knowing somebody is watching, and that was my question to you that I sent via email. I think knowing somebody is watching my dot when I'm doing something provides me a level of comfort and support, even though they're not there. And I was wondering how you felt about that.
So it was a really interesting question because for me, I know that family and friends will watch, so that gives me a sense of a feeling of safety, and I know spine safety are watching. Some people, I think, use the dot watching as a reason they feel people are watching them, and therefore they must try and perform harder,
Mm.
or they must do better. And that was a really interesting one. So I really thought about that. But because I don't look at it at all, because that would require me to have a phone out and try and do more things. And lots of people look at where they are in the field
So
by
you're not looking at that at all when you're
no.
okay.
And in fact, one of the things I really like afterwards is I don't know in yours in the States, but here you can leave messages for people. So
Hmm.
that yeah, you can do that too. Okay, so all those messages you get at the end, and then you start to understand that people have created this whole narrative around the race and what was going on the ground and who was racing who, and it's just rubbish. And you're looking at this really? No, it wasn't like that at all. Or your trackers stop working and they're literally yelling at you, get moving, get moving. I was moving. It was, so I think the dot watching thing is really fun, but people do get very, very obsessed. And it's quite nice to know that in the middle of the night, someone is watching that dot.
It really is. I've done some dot watching, and it is funny you say that because I've followed friends when their dots have stopped, when their tracker stopped working, and you're just like, are they okay? Are they in a ditch? And then you realize like, oh, they're just their dot's not working.
It's fine. Or they're out of signal or whatever it
Right.
is. It's all good. So I think that that piece is really interesting because that whole does the external world make a difference when you're doing these long races? Do you even remember that you're racing towards the end? I think there's a point where you sort of forget you're racing and you're just doing your thing and getting to the finish. The idea of when you see these people racing head to head in these really long races, I don't know how they do that.
Yeah.
It's I just forget why I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, even the people who tend to be racing, often, from what I've heard and when I've talked to them, it often falls away for them too, and it becomes a singular personal effort, to just do what they can to get done and to get to the finish line.
That it does. Yeah.
And I think that too, wrapping this back around, it's that those kind of endeavors really, really do, they teach you all that you have inside you that you don't know that you have inside you, which transcends the spine, right? It transcends whatever race you're doing, but you just learn how to problem solve, and that is really important.
I think that's possibly the most singularly important thing about any of these races. And I think that's where the fitness for these races comes in, because if you're not super fit, then your resilience and your ability to then problem solve on top of the energy to keep moving is something that you don't have. So I think there is an element where the fitness is different to the fitness for a flat out 50K, but you've got to have this really deep core of, I think, this massive base, because that base provides you with this ability to still function in every other way and
Right.
move.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that too, I think all of that carries over into life more broadly.
Yeah. And so again, coming back to those women and doing endurance sport at that point, it's when you really need energy. So because you're juggling everything. So by being really fit and really on it, that is, I think, really helpful.
All right. Well, I very much appreciate all of your efforts and your perspective here, and I guess my final question is, what would you tell if there's, and I know there's somebody listening, more than somebody probably, who's like, oh, maybe, like what would you tell them their first step should be if they're thinking about just dipping their toes into something like this?
And to a really long one,
Hmm.
just start small and keep building up. Literally, because I think with every smaller race you do, you learn the skills for the bigger race. And then one day you just have to go, I'm taking the plunge. And then when you do that, just equip yourself by surrounding yourself with people who've done it before, who'll share their knowledge, learn everything you can, because then you hit that start line with as many of those future problems solved as you can. And then knowing there'll be less of those because you've actually got over many of them. But I think by the time you hit that start line, if you've built up over time, you know yourself. And I think that's really fundamental to some of these races, just knowing yourself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, thank you so much, and good luck healing up and
Thank you.
restoring. And we'll be watching what you have going on in the rest of 2026.
Thank you so much. Lovely to chat.
Well, that's our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with Leah Keller, a certified personal trainer focusing on core and pelvic health. We take a deep dive into those topics, as well as her special program for healing diastasis recti, which you will not want to miss. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You have been listening to Hit Play Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the most amazing Carrie Barrett and the other talented, strong women at Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. And please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.